concerned about the mic level, so as long as everybody can hear me, I think we'll be okay. I used to do live sound, so I'm kind of particular about that. Okay, I'm ready. Oh, thank you guys for coming out tonight. I'm really happy to see the crowd that we had, and I have a bright light in my face that makes me uncomfortable right now. But we're gonna get through this no matter what, hell or high water. But no, thank you guys for coming out. So this is a very cheerful place to have grown up. This Cleveland in the 1980s was white sands, blue water, sunshine for days. No, I come from a family of Italian immigrants. My grandfather and his brothers moved here in the 1920s. They moved up there, worked in the automotive industry. They were factory workers, assembly line workers, just blue-collar, hard-working individuals. I think I gained a lot of work ethic from them eventually down the road. But we lived in that kind of bottom right-hand corner in that dull orange area. That's me as a child. This is the only time you'll ever see a child picture of myself. But and my mom dressed me like a Chucky doll there. But that's the expression I have on my face most of the time. I was a despondent child. I was actually very detached from my family. I was an extremely introverted child when I was growing up. I distanced myself from my family emotionally and psychologically. I liked to sit alone for long periods of time, and I could make friends at school, but I liked being alone when I was at home because it was a place that I could feel comfortable enough to draw on, to kind of engage in my own world of imagination. And there's me, picture me in the closet. So this is something I used to do as a kid. I used to put myself in the closet and sit in there for long periods of time because it was, to me, it sounds goofy, but it was a place that I could go that was another world. I felt it was an otherworldly sort of place where I could immediately close the door and I would be just immersed in blackness, and I was very happy. This wasn't coming from a place of hate or anger or frustration. I was actually a very happy child, but I just loved being alone. We moved to South Carolina, fast forward a few years. I went through a lot of turmoil as a teenager, very self-destructive, drug-induced, and alcohol at a young age. And I went to a Catholic school, and I got expelled in the 6th grade. So we moved to South Carolina. Fast forward a few more years. I worked as a paramedic for Charleston County EMS. I worked as a paramedic from 2010 to 2016. Very abrupt change in my life at that point. I had no intention on being a paramedic. It came out of a need to make money because I was living below the poverty line for a few years prior to that. Because I had no plan in life. I didn't go to college, and high school was miserable for me. And I'm going to try to make it as less bleak as possible, but it does get better, I think, towards the end, I think. Last time I checked this slideshow, I think it gets better. But no, I wish I could talk more at length about what it was like being a paramedic. It had a profound impact on my life in so many ways. That's an hour-long lecture in and of itself. I have to kind of breeze over it. During that time as a paramedic, I was trying to make up for lost time, and I became obsessed with the idea of trying to strengthen my ability to learn and to process information and to make myself a better person in general, because so much of my life had been squandered prior to that. And I started going to the library obsessively, and I started teaching myself how to learn because I was never really an academically inclined individual. So I got books on how to learn, and I read this book by Tony Buzan that taught you how to do mind mapping, and I was interested in the process of learning how to learn more efficiently and effectively. So this drawing actually changed my life. I drew this 3 months after I taught myself how to draw in charcoal, and I'd never drawn anything like that prior to. I had been drawing all my life, but nothing quite on that level. But this drawing changed my life in the sense that it gave me an enthusiasm and motivation that I had never possessed prior to, that told me that maybe I can start taking art seriously. I had always dismissed myself and told myself that I could never make art for a living because the idea of doing that was completely ridiculous. I never had anybody in my life to encourage that as a career. And I never even knew what the hell an art career was. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know any artists personally. And it radically changed my entire trajectory of what I think life could be and should be. And I began to become extremely reticent. And while this work was being produced, that was kind of towards the latter end of my paramedic career. That job started to really kind of deteriorate my life. And there were positive and negative impacts with that job and how it affected my life. But long hours, irregular sleep cycles eventually led me to the point where I just felt like I couldn't continue doing that job anymore. And I became obsessed with the idea of making my life as good as I can possibly make it by means of doing the best art that I can possibly make. And so I went on this obsessive track of I'm going to do whatever the fuck I have to do in order to remove myself of this job and to change my trajectory and go through this new door of new possibilities where I could make my life as good as I wanted it to be and make my life whatever I wanted it to be, as long as I was doing what I love for a living. So the idea of doing what you love for a living was a foreign kind of a unrealistic concept, and I started telling myself a different story. I started telling myself that my life could be potentially whatever I wanted it to be, and art became my primary focus. Once and for all, even though it had always kind of been in the back of my head, I finally developed enough courage and confidence to make it my primary goal. And this is some of my more recent work that I showed at Beresford a few months ago. And part of more recently was me taking responsibility for everything that I did not enjoy that was going on in my life in terms of my job. And I wasn't going to blame the job any longer. I wasn't going to blame any other kind of circumstantial things that were going on. I told myself that if you want something to change, you have to change yourself. So I held myself fully responsible for anything that went wrong, anything that was going wrong. And once I took responsibility for my own life, then that's when I was able to kind of make a change. Because I was able to change myself, and my focus and clarity about what I wanted to do started to kind of come in full focus. So this it's one of my more recent pieces that I enjoyed a lot. It was a mixed media piece, charcoal on paper, and it's called Little Girl, but it's about her look on her face. What I like about it, because it's representative of kind of what it means to be a human being. It doesn't just say one thing. There's sadness and there's fear. And she's timid, but she's also extremely powerful, and she's very strong, and she looks like she can persevere. And thank you guys for listening.